What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? In the Image Clothing Company podcast, Frank the guitar. Check out another third of us, which is In the Image Clothing Company music, for more of him if you want. Today is the 22nd of January, 2025. I mean, it's kind of the 23rd because it is past midnight. Maybe it's not, because this clock right here is wrong. I think it actually is still the 22nd. So, it's a Wednesday. My name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, a company where we address the human body. We allow the human body to work, coming at it from the skeletal system, because the fat content and the muscle mass are two different things, and both of those things that are different come and go at different points in our lives, and we have different amounts of them. So we need to keep our body's structural system being that, and a structure has to be centered, and so does our body, because it has a spine that is there in the middle. So we address clothing and everything we do in our lives. Actually, we address everything that the human body does and how to just do that naturally. The goal is natural. The word is always allow the body to work. So yeah, I'm going to get into, for a minute or two here, where clothing needs to sit on everybody, as I do, just to allow the human body's skeletal system to just do its function without being restricted. Ideally, just the absolute least restriction that we can. Otherwise, it's being altered, and it only works one way. And then we'll get into this episode of the podcast. This is episode 44, actually, of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. 44 is the episode number. All right. Because this episode is actually titled, I Have a Clothing Company. Okay, so for everybody, our pants need to be entirely above our hips, because we have ranges of motion in there that just needs to be there naturally and just needs to work. The waistline needs to be slightly higher in the front than in the rear, because that way the core, those muscles, can stay activated by keeping that pelvis tucked nice and neutrally. Otherwise, you're trying to fight something that's placed on you, and no human being will ever win that fight. So the core should and always would be constantly activated, because it's just the center of us. And in 2025, a lot of people are very out of touch with that and think it's something they have to get to happen. But no, that is absolutely false. So this goes for everybody: man, woman, tall, short, skinny, fat, any age, any part of the earth, as far as the places that clothing needs to sit. The tops that we wear, the seams that are up there need to sit behind those little bones, because those are the other end of our collarbones, and that keeps our shoulders in their neutral position, because the shoulders naturally do sit behind the body. Those shoulder blades wrap back behind the rib cage. Now, the edge seams of those shoulders need to be right at the very edges, because that's where the shoulder moves. You're going to lift your shoulder like this, like pivot it in that socket. Well, it's going to do that right where it is, as far as the socket, and that's where your seam needs to be to allow that to happen. Now, In the Image Clothing Company has two additional prerequisites, as I say, just to further aid in no restriction with the body. The first one is the shoelacing technique that we have, and that's found wherever you find In the Image Clothing Company. Included with that technique is just to tie the shoes evenly over toward the inside on both feet to the center of the body, because there is one, and that way you have an even foundation traveling up the rest of you. Otherwise, you are literally pulling your body in only one direction for the entirety of the time that you are tying your shoes. Anyway, that's not how I just said, because I always say don't believe me, but we just discuss things that are true. But we mess up because we're human beings, sinful by nature, right? We're called In the Image Clothing Company because we are all universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. So that's what we do here at the podcast, is have discussions on the gospel, the truth of all things. Now, in addition to the shoe laces, our second prerequisite is just to remove all tags from within clothing. It might sound like a lot. I realize that, and I've realized that since the very founding and the launch of In the Image Clothing Company, that in my intros of things, even before we had the podcast, I would mention this stuff, and it sounds like kind of a lot to do, but it's not. And it's stuff that you will never go back from unless you get a little bit complacent with it, because it's just doing what it's doing. So we remove all the tags because no matter where it's placed within clothing, it's just altering the body by causing an unnatural gap, even within the shoes. And if those tags aren't actually like protruding out of the clothing, they're still just made out of a material that's placed there, and it's altering the muscle's ability to activate against it, or the skeletal system's position, if it's just actually causing a physical gap. It's just changing the way that things connect, and they only do what they do. The body's a mechanical machine. It just has functions, and if there's anything restricting those, then it can't do them. And so it'll be doing them out of like a compensation, and like not fully actually doing the things that it's just doing to keep it operating. So there we go. Yeah, even within the shoes, if those tags are there, your ankle has a certain amount of dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, where it just, goes up and down, like lifting your toes or pointing them like a dancer, right? And you also have gripped arches within your feet that naturally work kind of like the hand, going like this. If you're just listening to this episode of the podcast and you're not actually seeing this visually, well, just picture like the hand gripping inward. And that's how the feet really work when they're working the way that they do. And a lot of people aren't doing that nowadays. So, I love this. I love how like chill this is already, because as far as this episode versus some of the other ones, for the sake of, that's how I'm feeling right now, and that's why this episode is what it is. Because, I mean, yeah, sure, it's in our name, and so it seems like we would be a clothing company, and okay, but one thing that's really hitting me is that I have a clothing company. That's why the episode is titled that, because I don't think about it like that. I don't think about clothing when I think about In the Image Clothing Company. I think about the human body functioning the way it's designed, and I think about sitting and how we do that, and I think about posture and how it's not really a thing, but it's just a word to use to describe the body working in its most efficient way vertically, and so, and that's what we are, is those things. But I think a big reason why I don't really register within my own being that I have a clothing company is because we don't currently have clothing available to sell yet. That last word's the key one in that sentence, because we totally will. And it's going to be so cool to just see how, well, because I think the biggest thing about us is it's not a conditional thing. Because, yeah, and I've talked about this, I mean, that's why I say, like, we have our universal patterning series, because our bodies get into the same patternings from clothing imbalances, regardless of where on the earth you are, and it will always be that way, just because the human body always will continue to just do what it does, and clothing will react to the body the same if it's imbalanced in similar ways, or if it's oversized, it's just going to pull on the body to our dominant side the way that it does, or just pull the body down the way that it does, no matter what, any time period ever, for all humans to ever live. So that's why it's such a cool thing, is because it's not conditional on anything. It's not conditional on how our clothing looks, or what's funny is that the reason I started saying that is because we don't even have clothing, and I'm about 7 months into this company, and there's no like delay, there's no should haves that aren't there yet, because I've said that before. It doesn't matter if we ever sell an item of clothing, yet we are still a clothing company. We're like clothing centered in a sense, but I always say we're centered on the gospel of Jesus Christ. But then I always say also that our whole goal is to keep the human body centered. So it's a funny thing. That's what I mean. Like we just kind of hit it from all sides. It's a company that has no conditions. That's crazy, you know? But that's the case. So because we could be as impactful as we need to without ever actually selling clothing. We are going to sell clothing. We are. It'll be natural materials 100%, and it will be, well, what I always phrase is staying centered, fitting correct, allowing the body to work, right? Buy it in your size. And then, like, I'm pointing my finger at you, like, you know, because you have to, or else you're not going to get from it what the intention is, like I was just discussing a little bit with oversized clothing. So, yeah, that's what's so sweet. And I think tonight was a big thing, you know, whenever you're speaking in front of people, it kind of, oh, I love it. Honestly, I love speaking in front of people. And it hit me tonight. I actually spoke in front of just, you know, some people, and more than just like a little group or like, you know, yeah. And it was cool because it's so comfortable for me to do. And that's great. And I was praying about it after. I'm like, I love that I had no kind of like, I almost didn't realize that it was like me doing it when it was happening. And that's how I want it to be, because it doesn't matter. Like, it's not about me or any kind of recognition on my part. And what's really been great for that is this podcast, because I can just sit here and talk and kind of get in the flow of like what I'm talking about. And that's beautiful. So here's the thing is, we're going to have ways where we are like with people and teaching them about their own body. I didn't know how my own body worked until I was 24 years old, but it was the same body that I had since I was born here, right? And that's the case for, oh, I mean, the vast, vast, vast majority of human beings. And that's strange, because I talk about how the body is the only thing that we're actually given in this life, yet most all of us are that out of touch with our own. It doesn't quite make sense, but that's really the case. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll have like ways of, you know, doing that in public settings, right? Where I'm kind of like up on, I don't want to like paint a picture of how it needs to look, but like, you know, kind of like up on a stage in front of people, and, you know, we're gathering and I'm discussing things, and we're, you know, right? I mean, it's going to be that kind of thing, and that's going to be really cool. And it's funny because I had people telling me, like I said earlier, I was kind of praying about what happened tonight that I didn't really plan on until earlier today. I got invited to be able to do what I did tonight. And anyway, kind of vague, but not with like some weird intention behind it. Just that's all I'm going to say right now. Yeah, I kind of got thinking back to throughout my life. People have told me stuff like, yeah, I can see you being on stages and like helping people and in that way. And I remember even I was like 17 years old, and people, well, what I wanted to be at that age was a motivational speaker. Actually, that really is, I wasn't planning on saying that within this because I forgot until now. No, I did. I wanted to be a motivational speaker. And I mean, that's what we're doing. Because, okay, the quote unquote best motivational speaker is just somebody who's preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. And anybody and everybody can do that. So, yeah, I mean, that's what it's going to be. But in doing that, yeah, we'll talk about clothing, we'll talk about the body's anatomy, and, you know, we'll have this whole family that we are as this company, in the Image Clothing Company. So, what's really cool about all that is, we get prepared. That's okay. Here we go. This is gonna be crazy. We get prepared for things that we're going to be doing long before we do them. And so, yeah, I was 17, 18 years old and wanting to be a motivational speaker, and I'd, you know, make some videos and post them on. I had social media at the time, and that's where they'd be posted, and just the internet, you know, uplifting stuff. I'd make a lot of stuff where I just publicly said things, to uplift people, and making a lot of music in the ways that I did back then as well, and trying to motivate people and uplift people. And I was someone who needed it as well. And I wasn't quite looking in the right ways on how to get that. I really wasn't centered within the gospel the way that I should have been for years of my life. But it happens, and a lot of times those things are what we actually learn the most from. That's what's happened in my case. So that's really cool to look back on. Yeah, this is really great. Yeah, because I didn't really know exactly how this was going to go, other than I was just starting to realize, like, I have a clothing company. So here's the thing. Man, it's really cool because it's a whole thing. That's what I'm saying about wow. I don't think about it as much as clothing as I do the other, like, ways that we approach what we do. And so I think that's the part of it that's really hitting me is, no, I'm going to be selling clothing. I'm going to be designing clothing with the help of the team as it grows. Of course, I mean, the team is going to be doing a lot of this stuff that I'm saying that, like, quote unquote, I'm doing, but just, as far as the company, and I'm the founder, it's going to be a lot of this, a lot of clothing, actually clothing. And that's the part that's hitting me because we are. Because what I do is I'll be watching TV, right? Or a movie, or I'll be out in public, or just anywhere where I see another human being, or I'll just see clothing displayed on hangers or on racks or whatever. And I watch it and I look at it and I'm like, oh my goodness, especially when people are wearing clothing, right? Especially just looking at people and they've got clothing on because people wear clothing. That's a good thing to do. When I see people and the positions their bodies are in, as far as they're not standing the way the human skeletal system is actually designed to connect, and they're not sitting the way that it is designed to connect the human skeletal system, like, and I see them trying to carry something or bend over, or they have, certain things they're doing, trying to do whatever they're doing, as a physical function in their life. And what I'm watching a lot of the time is what clothing they're wearing. I'm looking at shoelaces, right? And I'm looking at shirt sizes and where the shoulder seams are sitting. And I'm looking at the height of the pants and the angle, and if they've got a belt, and if it's pulling the pants down in the front as far as like the angle, or if they have things in their pockets and how their feet rotations are changing because of what is in their pockets, and if it's in the front or the rear of their pockets, of their pants, and all these kind of things, and plus many, many, many more things that I look at. I mean, I know really, really, really deep ins and outs of what clothing is doing to the human body. And I've said this, and I just feel right about saying this, not for any kind of recognition on my part, but I really wonder if there's anybody on the earth, and I know the earth is quite it's a place full of quite a few people, but I keep feeling like prompted to say that, and not for any kind of reason other than that. I don't know if there's really anybody on the earth that knows quite the extent of what clothing is doing to the human body that I do. And really the point is, like, what to do to address that and how to allow the clothing to not restrict us. I really just feel prompted to say that each time that I do, because I don't know if that's even something that could be the case. There's so many people on the earth, but in all seriousness, that's it. That's the thing, is looking around at these patternings, right? Looking at people's bodies as far as the rotations and the placement of things like the shoulder blades, and the angles of the feet are huge, and so common for feet to stick out, but they got to be straightforward. We walk straight forward. That's where the feet should point. So that's what we're going to do, right? Is just help everybody with stuff like that. And so I see this kind of stuff, but it hasn't really been like a thought of mine that much at all for the whole time up until now that this company's been what it has. And since September 2024, the 23rd of September 2024 is when we actually, like, launched. I mean, I haven't really been realizing we're going to sell clothing, because through some parts of it, I was thinking about that. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know how it's going to look. I remember back in, well, I mean, yeah, before we were like official, I was still preparing to make clothing and sell it for this reason, and just do what I'm doing now, but it just wasn't like set in stone how we were named, and the three sides that we have and things weren't quite what they are now yet. And I was like, what's funny is my mom has a sewing machine and I don't have one, meaning I'm was planning on using hers to start designing clothing. This was like quite a while back. And I pulled it into my room and set on a stool. And I was, gonna start just like chopping some stuff up and doing some designs. And it's still sitting there, and I haven't touched it. I haven't turned it on. I plugged it in one day, and then I was like, well, don't feel like I need to do anything with this right now. So I unplugged it. It's still sitting in the same location, like 6 months plus later. It's been a while. And so it has. That's cool though, because that's it. I mean, I am a clothing designer. I mean, it says that, like, where the company's like main content is placed online right now, it says that, it's under like the little description of what In The Image Clothing Company is. Like, yeah, I am a clothing designer, but I haven't like designed stuff that's ready to like produce yet. And that's fine. That's what I mean, is like, it's such a cool thing. Because also in the other room when I was sitting here kind of praying through, like, wow, okay, yeah, no, I mean, I need to approach it that way. I'm going to add on to this right after I say what I'm going to say about approaching it that way, that this is a clothing company. What I was thinking was like, oh, okay, maybe that's just where I'm going right now. Yeah, maybe there wasn't anything in between. What I'm saying is, when people ask me what I do, a lot of times I just, like, in this time period, because I'm not like working in any other way as far as like at a job or like for somebody else for money right now. And I kind of just say that I don't have like a job, but I don't give them any kind of context. I think that I really need to start saying, just because it's the case, that, well, I founded and own and run a clothing company, and there you go. Like, because that's what's happening. And there's no like holding back on my part that I'm doing when I don't mention that, but it just hasn't been something that I've been doing, because that's what I mean, is the company is just as big now as it will need to be. I guess you can word it as, to be like considered a real thing, even though we don't have clothing that we're you know selling yet. So I don't know, it's really cool. I just was realizing that, and getting like prompted to be like, yeah, no, you need to just, well, not like a demand necessarily, but kind of like an allowance. Like, no, yeah, you're totally fine. Like, you're allowed to just say you have a clothing company, because you do. And so, I just, there's no sense of trying to, wow, make something, wow, that it isn't. I think that's why that tripped me up, because I'm not doing that in saying that I have a clothing company, because that's what this is. And so it's really cool, because I've talked about this a little bit within the podcast, but you lose touch, and this is a good thing, with how hard it is to just live life through imbalanced clothing. When you're in my situation, and everything that I have right now, ooh, that's a bold thing to say, because there could be one or two things, but I really do think everything that I have, but yeah, I'm going to say this, everything that I have besides material-wise, there's a couple things that I have that are not just 100% natural materials, and I can feel it, and I've talked about this, you really get to the point where you can, because you just get more in touch with not unnatural stuff seeping into your skin, and so then you start to notice that it is when it is. And yeah, so besides that, I'm pretty much everything that I have, I mean, I think I can say everything that I have is centered, and it fits me quite well. And, that was never the case in pretty much any part of my time on this earth up until, like, very recent founding the company. So you kind of don't really realize the extent of the effect in a negative way that imbalanced clothing has on your life. It's not just your physical body as far as physical energy, but your sleep, your everything, your emotions. It goes into everything. And that's why we are, right? And that's why I'm saying, like, it's not just about, yeah, cool, here's my business card, go to this website and click your size and click purchase and there's your clothing. It's like I was discussing toward the start of this, we're going to be meeting up. We're going to be talking with people about stuff. We have the podcast, and we also make music as a clothing company, but we do. And so that's the whole thing. Is there's a lot of sides to this, and it's a beautiful thing, because I was actually talking with somebody tonight at this place that I was mentioning that I was at, and I'm not trying to be vague about it. I don't know. That's how it's coming out, and that's what I'm sticking with. They were asking me, right? Well, that's where it came up, is like this guy asked me what I do for work, and I just told him that I don't work right now, but I told him, I've had a lot of jobs and I love change so much that I need something that's different, that's got like variety to it and that's like diverse, and that's what this company is. And so, yes, we are a clothing company, and yes, we do make music. And yes, we have a podcast that's not even actually about clothing, but it's about the gospel of Jesus Christ. But yes, we are a clothing company, right? It's a cool thing. So the thing that is in our name, as far as like what you would probably get out of hearing the name In the Image Clothing Company, probably for the most part, is that the word clothing company, those two words are in there. I mean, if you're a Christian, or if you just know where the phrase In the Image comes from, then you might hear the gospel as well, and that's great, seriously. But as far as that clothing company part of it, like, yeah, we are. So it's really cool because, man, it's just cool. It's going to be so sweet to have clothing. I never saw myself as somebody who would, like, because I'm not a salesman, right? I mean, how many times, I'm not going to ask it like that. I'm going to say there's so many times that you can hear me say up until this point, don't believe me when I with the stuff that I'm talking about. And that's like such a weird thing as far as a sales pitch, because we don't have one, right? And when you think about clothing, you think about selling it. And I never thought about me being somebody who would like sell something. And not that it's bad to, but just, there's definitely a bad side of sales, as far as a pushy side, a like manipulative side, a side of saying something is what it isn't, and that's not what we are. And that's where we say the phrase, don't believe me, right? I mean that, don't believe me. But that's the whole thing, is I never really could have imagined having an approach to something the way that this company is, and it's just so beautiful. That's why it's a gift. As many times as I can say this is just as true, and there's no intention of mine behind it. It's not my doings. It's not me that created this as it is, or that had it set up this way, because I couldn't have. That's what I mean. It's not something I could have possibly even made be the way that it is. It's just been totally given to me as I've been surrendering and praying through this past time period of my life. Yeah, it's been a time, man. And so the whole thing is, yeah, we're gonna sell stuff to you if you'd like to buy it, but we're not gonna be pushy about it. We're gonna be transparent about what it is, and we're gonna have every single intention be the phrase, allowing the body to work, right? You're not buying something that you don't know what you're getting yourself into. It's because we talk about it. We'll have videos that pretty much don't even mention clothing at all, and just talk about like the way that the shoulder of the human being naturally functions, right? Or the feet, or the ankles, or the knees, or the pelvis, or the core, or the fingernails, the hands, things like this, where yeah, you're gonna know what you're getting yourself into when you purchase anything from us, if you decide to, right? And that's why it's weird, because it's like, as a company, normally you're trying to sell stuff, and it's like, it's always like the last resort in a sense when I'm speaking about the company, is like, if you want to buy our clothing. And so that's why it's strange to me. That's why I haven't viewed it as a clothing company, very much. But it is. At the end of the day, I mean, that's what's allowing us to just function, is by being intentional about our clothing. So, it's such a weird kind of like roundabout thing, but it's not in any way. It's just the way that I've been thinking about it, right? So I love it. I love that I can just sit here and discuss it like this, because yeah, I mean, don't believe us, but you can watch our videos about like I'm saying, the way that the functionality of certain parts of the body just is. And it's a relief, because we don't have stretches, we don't have exercises, we don't have things that we're telling you to do. We're saying stop all that, plus the restriction as well, and there's your body as it is. And that's why it's such a cool thing, and it is a backward thing. But, as I always say, the paradoxical gospel of Jesus Christ, the alliterations in the Image Clothing Company, the alliterations. I'm very much a lyricist, and I love to work words, and so there's a lot of that too within the company that I didn't plan either. That's such a cool thing to be able to have. Yeah. Oh, it's really cool. So, but I want to focus on it a little bit. The fact that we're gonna have clothing, man. So I mean, when people ask, because oh, I was so unfashionable for a lot of my life. And it's not about fashion. Our company, I've said that since the launch. I've said that since before we even launched, actually. I was like, just saying, I was making videos, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make some cool clothing. I'm a clothing designer now. And I meant it. And it was like, okay, cool. I guess that's really how it is. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to have clothing designs available that are just going to allow the body to work. But then once we actually became, the company that we are, in the Image Clothing Company, at that point I was like, all right, yeah, I mean, cool. I mean, we're really gonna have clothing. And I need to yawn for a second, brother. I'm doing like releases on my pinky finger as I'm doing this episode of the podcast, right? Talk about the human body. Well, we do. Right? So what I'm saying is, yeah, since the very start, I was saying it wasn't about fashion. It's not about fashion. It's not going to be. Stuff will look nice and it'll be good. But I kind of brush over that, because it's not about looking nice for the sake of, like bling, right? I mean, within the gospel, we talk about the fine twined linen. That's how it's worded a lot, when these fancy high end clothing that, like, the people of high importance, quote unquote, wear, and sets them apart in a visual way because of what they're wearing, and it is what they're wearing. But for us, and this is again things I've said since the very start, what's going to happen is, we, as the human being wearing In the Image Clothing Company clothing, are what's going to stand out, because of the way that our bodies are allowed to function, the way that our God designed them to. It's not about our clothing. I almost want, this is cool, right? This is really sweet, because this is really how it is, and this is how it's going to continue to be. I want our clothing to almost like not even be something people notice, because they just see us. And we're so stood apart, right? I mean, set apart, and we stand out from everybody around us because our bodies function well. The clothing almost like, it's like people almost don't even notice it. And that, I feel like that's how I am. I mean, I haven't really asked people like, hey, what do you see when you look at me, as far as, in this, through this avenue. Really haven't done that, but that's how I kind of like perceive people when they look at me, because of the way that my body functions. Because I stand as if there's no restriction physically. Because, I mean, to the degree that there is quite high, as far as no restriction. That was worded kind of backward. But I mean, because that's my whole thing. I'm so intentional about it, like meticulously intentional, but that way I just am me, right? And that's the whole goal, right? Is natural. Frank the Guitar says that. I'm not going to pull him up again, but if you saw him in the intro, if you're watching this podcast in visual plus audio, then yeah, he says on him that phrase. Because that's what we do, because that's the only thing there is. Neutral and natural are synonyms within the human body. The way that I use them and the way that, we discuss things through in the Image Clothing Company. So our clothing is going to almost like, not visually, but as far as attention-wise, disappear when we wear it. Because, well, if we're doing what we say within the company, as far as whoever you are, doing all the prerequisites and having it sit where it should, then your body's going to just work. We don't have a claim, right? That's what it is, there it is, and forever it will be. So that's the whole thing, is, yeah, we have a clothing company here, man. I mean, we really do. And it's cool. It's so sweet. Oh my gosh. I mean, because I was kind of starting to talk about it, but like toward the start of this company, that was kind of my focus, is like, all right, cool, we're making clothing. And that's, I mean, how we're allowing this to happen. So I've never done that. I've never sold things on any kind of like broad scale. I mean, I've sold plenty of things in my life, as far as just like things, like individual items that I've had, and I've sold them to other individuals, right? I've done that like a lot, but I haven't ever sold anything on like a broad scale like this, where we have a product and we have multiple of it, and it's designed well and it just does what we say, and we have a way of shipping it and getting it to people on any part of our earth that can happen from where we are, right? I mean, that's how it's going to be. And I've never had that yet. And so I was kind of like thinking about all the logistics of it and things, but the point is, I'm going to have a team. We're going to have amazing people that work at In The Image Clothing Company, and they're going to be the way it's allowed to happen. I mean, I can't do all that as one little person, just little me, Evan Strong. There's no way. So that's the whole thing. It's like, I've never had a team that, I mean, like, I've been in some supervising and managing positions, but I've never had like my own team, as far as they're doing the thing that I put together, right? And it's not really me that put it together, as far as like I'm saying, this is kind of just happening through me, but I am the leader of this in the earthly sense, right? And I am the founder of it, as far as the human being who did that. So it's those kind of things where I haven't really been thinking about that so much lately. And that is actually what allowed me to really just do this, how it's been happening, is by not thinking about clothing and selling it how to, because I don't know still, as of today's date. I don't, right? I don't know. I don't know all the logistics of that, but I don't need to, because I'm just praying through it, and it's just going to happen how it does. And the focus is allowing the body to work. The focus isn't sales. The focus definitely is not money. So the focus is the impact. The focus is spreading the gospel through this, giving truth through this, changing lives for generations and ever, really, because, once you learn how to tie your shoes evenly, you teach your kids, and then now your kids teach their kids, and right, and you've changed the world. I was talking about this within one of the past episodes of the podcast, within the past like 7-ish, maybe one of those numbers from this one back. I was talking about like, yeah, I'm going to change the world. It's not about me. It's not like I'm making some claim, but that's what I mean. It's those simple little things. And so, yeah, we're already doing it, as far as we're already doing In The Image Clothing Company. So I kind of forget about the clothing part of it, but that will be really great as well, because people don't want to have to do modifications to stuff, man. I mean, I don't really enjoy it so much. I really, really, really enjoy the benefit that comes from it. But as far as, why do we have to modify something that we've purchased to have the function that it has, but just ideally in a little bit of a better way than it's currently having, when it's coming with a tag in it, right? And it's coming with just any kind of imbalances, any kind of man-made stuff that's seeping into our bodies. I mean, there's no opinion to this stuff. Like, I feel like there's the potential to maybe almost start to lose people when you start talking about stuff they don't quite understand. But hey, guess what? I was in the same boat until I understood it, right? We don't know what we don't know. So, yeah, we talk about a lot of things here that a lot of people don't know, but it applies to them just as much as it applies to me as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. So, because we're just the same structural being, right? Yes. So, I think it's so cool to think about that, though, that we will have clothing, because people like that. I mean, people like to purchase stuff, and that's something I have to be okay with, because I try to live extremely minimal, and I try to pray through everything that I'm doing, so I'm not like getting more than I need or getting things because I'm desiring them. But there's a lot of people who really appreciate good products, and don't take my word for it, but there'd be no other reason to have this company sell anything if it wasn't good products, right? I mean, that's one thing that's so cool, is you can see how absolutely meticulous I personally, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, am about my own clothing, about my own shoelaces, and about, you know, the way that I hold my pants up. I talk about this knot, the slipped lap knot. It's called LAPP. That's the knot that I use to hold my pants up, because it's something that keeps them entirely horizontal, right? So, I mean, like, the amount of particularity that I am, and removing every little tiny thing that people would think is just too small to matter, you know, that's why it's cool that I am the founder of this, for anybody's sake that wants to purchase something that's good for their body, because, oh, you better believe it, I'm going to do all that I can. Again, I've never designed clothing up until this point, right? And so, I mean, it's new for me, but that's the whole point, is to be very, very intentional, so that nobody else has to be, once they purchase something and like feel like they have to know what to do to modify it. I mean, you can know what to do, because we're just transparent about why we're designing things the way that we are, and the modifications that I personally do, I share, right? We're not like holding any information back, and that's something I've talked about, right? It's not my place to be doing that, because that's the whole point of this, is to share things that people don't have to spend money to be able to have a functioning body. That's the goal within this part of what we're talking about, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's what's really cool about it, is it's gonna be good, dude. I mean, don't believe me, but believe, no, don't believe anything, please. Because I don't, right? But what I mean is, you can see it. It manifests itself. Like, yeah, I'm gonna just do all that I can always to just be as intentional as I can, so that when I'm discussing things, you don't even have to really know much about what I'm talking about, but you can just see my own physical body, you know, the dexterity in my hands, the motion in my shoulders, and the neutrality of my spine and my jaw and my pelvis, and my feet point forward, and I walk that way, right? People go forward. Oh, that's such a huge thing. It's something we don't know if we don't know. I didn't. So definitely do now, and know how to allow that to happen. So it's things like that, you know, where you don't gotta believe me, but you can't deny truth either. So there you go, right? Just watching me, because we do a lot of video. Me again, being the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, Evan Strong is my name. I love video. I've done so much video throughout my life that it's something I'm really comfortable with, and I love so much. So we already have so many videos, and that's just one of the biggest things we'll have, is video, to give information and whatever else we do with that, you know, on all ends of things, all three sides of the company. You know, the podcast is video, music side of things. I film me playing music and stuff. So it's really cool, because again, don't believe it, but especially in 2025, I've talked about this before. This is the case, and it's going to get only more this way. It's very, very hard to have a body that just works unless you're pretty darn intentional. Just because we live in such a fake, right? And the body's natural. So, yeah. yeah, that's huge because, again, you can listen to anybody about anything about how to get the body to work or what you think that you need to do or what they say you need to do or what, but it's the whole fruits of the labor, right? And so that's why I'm not doing it for the reason of being seen, although that'd be a good thing to do, leading a company. But I'm doing it because this is just my life, and I'm doing all that I can to let the thing that I've been given, which is the only thing we're actually promised, our physical bodies, to last me as long as mine needs to for my lifetime. And the way that's going to happen is through clothing in the physical function sense and position wise. That's the way. There's no other way. Workouts, stretches, mobility, diets, all that always, if you want to choose to try any of that stuff, and there's times and places for everything, that has to, no opinion of mine, come secondary to clothing because it's always on you. So, right, we have a clothing company, bro. It's just like a, kind of like a almost. In case you didn't know, yeah, we really are going to have clothing available. So it's cool because I like that. I like that kind of environment. What I love is we're going to be around such great people because they're going to be able to be in a good mood, right? I mean, we fluctuate, we go through things, whatever. I'm not expecting people to just always be so like happy and chipper and whatever. But what I mean is people are going to be in just an authentic state of being that work with us and around us and on the team and that are part of the family and community that In The Image Clothing Company is, because they're going to feel physically unrestricted. That's the goal, because that's how our bodies were designed to be. So we have a clothing company, and yes, we actually will have clothing you can purchase. And I say it, except for the podcast episodes that get cut off because my storage on the device I'm filming it with gets full, or if I forget it in certain videos or some things, the music side of stuff, a lot of times I don't really mention that so much, but I do say it that we will have clothing available. And then I say, like I said, staying centered, fitting correct, allowing the body to work, 100% natural materials, purchase it in your size, stuff that just works for everybody across the entirety of the earth, always will. And I say that stuff, but I feel like a lot of times, like, I don't realize that that's what this is, in addition to the other things that it is as well, right? So, yeah, man, because I'm not saying there's like a problem with being a businessman, because there's some really, really good businessmen or women, but just, as far as mankind, human beings out there. But in a lot of cases, there's some pretty terrible people because of, well, I don't know about because of, but through the avenue of being like a business person, because it gives them like almost a justified reason to take advantage of people. That's really what happens sometimes. And sometimes is actually, it happens quite often. It really does. Because as human beings, it's, we seek money and we try to put our, yeah, we like money as people. We tend to. Even me, at times in my life, I have, and I'm not saying that I never could get to where there's parts of my life where I'm like desiring to have certain money amounts or more of it, or harbor it for myself instead of like using it in the proper ways, going towards like the things that we use it for. And we'll be transparent about the stuff that we do, right? And so that's the whole thing. It's just gonna be cool, dude. But we have a clothing company. Like, I just want to keep circling back because that's the title of this episode. That's what this really is. Yes, it's this podcast is the gospel of Jesus Christ, but as I always say, it is since the gospel of Jesus Christ literally is just translated into the good news of our God himself, and he is all things. It's just the truth of all things, as I say, not because I say, but that's just what it is. And so no matter what we're talking about, if it's like a real thing, and it's like unchanging and it's universal, there we go. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so within this podcast episode, I just don't want to feel like there's any kind of intention of me like having a podcast that's like set aside or set apart from like gospel discussion, because it's not. As far as this episode, it isn't. So yeah, it's really cool. I've been thinking a lot about just the whole earth, because It's really funny. I don't think about the United States of America that often, and I am a citizen, and this is where I live and was born. And I'm not trying to say an intention on either end of what I think about it right now, and that's not what that's trying to come across as. But what I am saying is, when I think about the company, I think about the globe as a whole. I've been watching a lot of stuff on the television of like other parts of the world, other parts of our earth, and I'm interested in it, and I love to be able to see that, as I say, people are the same across the globe, and they're in the same physical patternings. They're wearing such similar clothing, and their bodies react to it the exact same. So, if you're black, if you're white, if you're brown, if you're like anything that you could be, if you're a man or a woman, if that's what, right? It goes for everybody, any age. I mean, anything, man. So the whole thing is, it's a global thing. And that's something that can't quite be what it is to the extent that it is, as far as any company can't quite do that as good as it can with the internet without having the internet. That was a very roundabout way to say that. But, being given this company in this time period, being placed onto this earth in this time period as well, it's like, yeah, because we can, shipping internationally is something that doesn't, it's not as like hard of a thing to do as it was in the past, and it's it's so cool, the information that we share, because even, right, like I say, it's not about sales. You don't even have to buy our clothing, but just, the videos that we share and the information and things, like, it can go from here to any part of our planet so basically immediately and easily, and for the sake of helping, right? For the sake of sharing information that changes lives. So it's really great because everybody needs clothing, and that's the whole thing. Is I think that's a big part of why I was talking about seeing things from other sides of the earth, and watching on the television, these TV shows where there's people like in desert environments, and now you've got sandstorms, and it's like, oh yeah, those people still wear clothing for the same reasons, but like a little bit different. You got people that are out on the beach, and those people wear clothing for the same reasons, but like a little bit different. You've got people that are up in colder climates, like farther north or farther south, right? And those people wear clothing for the same reasons, but like a little bit different. And you've got people that like are on any part of anything as far as our earth goes, and they all have to have clothing, man. And we are all just the same. So it's really cool because we're providing I don't even want to use this word, but a quote unquote product that every single human needs and always will. Because I was thinking about that. I'm like, well, I mean, like, what if people are just trying to like not be so modest and like, whatever. Like, I was trying to think about like what ends of when would clothing not be something that's applicable, and it's just there's always need for clothing, and there's need for something that's good, I mean, that's what I love, and that's how it was growing up. Even at the times when I had so much clothing in my closets or in my drawers that like I didn't even wear, it didn't quite fit me. I didn't know what it even meant for clothing to fit or how it should, right? And I was so out of touch with how my own body works, as I was saying. But there was like always those like few items of certain things, like few shirts that I knew for sure were great. Like you going to pack on a trip, and you're just like, well, I don't know. I mean, I want something that I know that since there's only a certain amount of space in my luggage, like the stuff that I'm like the container that I'm taking my things in to go wherever I'm going, I want to make sure that what I do put in there is something that's actually very useful for when I go, right? So I remember there was like certain shirts that I'd have at certain times in my life where I know that this would be something that I could wear and it'd be good. And then like certain pairs of pants and things like that. That's in the Image Clothing Company clothing. It's those kind of items where you're dressing up at parties or at whatever you're trying to go to or events or anything, and do whatever you do, and wear whatever you wear if you feel like you want to wear something that like looks a certain way. But if you want something that's just good and you just know it's going to be reliable, like I just need something that I know is not going to be restrictive. I can do basically anything that I could ever think of as a human being in a physical function kind of way within. That's in the Image Clothing Company clothing. okay? So that's what I mean when I was saying, like, I'm not so much about fashion. You know, I mean, yeah, it's gonna look nice, but it's not gonna be focused around fashion. Because that's the thing is a lot of times those shirts that I'm thinking about shirts right now, you know, packing shirts to go on a trip, you're like, well, I mean, I almost don't care even that much how it looks. I just want to make sure that when I get there, I've got what I need so that I'm not like, you know, fighting my clothing when I'm in a place where you're on a vacation or you're on like you know, just a trip away from where you currently live for whatever reason it is. That's how I want to approach like discussing what In The Image Clothing Company clothing is. And that's how it was back when I was thinking about like designing, and like I was kind of trying to get all that done at the start when it didn't need to. And I'm glad that I didn't continue to try to like rack my brain on how to do that at first, because that's not the approach that needed to happen, and it's not the approach that continued to. So that's great. But I mean, like I've been like writing out, you know, what the designs are going to be like and things. And a lot of what I was saying was, you know, stuff that having the intention, meaning no guarantees, but like something you can have for like 10 years, you know, a nice shirt that you can just have for 10 years and it'll just work that whole time, you know, and something that you can both go work out in some like agricultural field in comfortably and it can fit that environment well, but also you can like go to the beach in it as well. And, you know, even the same item of clothing you can take to that like business casual event. That's the thing, okay, right? And that's why I've said since the start, like we'll have button ups for sure, short sleeve, long sleeve, and then our pants will be a similar thing. It's entirely functional for like, right, working in the agricultural field. Just some examples of like kind of three ends of things, right? Vacation, work, and then I don't know what else you'd call it, like leisurely life, maybe. You know, just like I don't know, kind of like all ends though, right? Stuff that you can wear on all of those ends, because like this button-up shirt, for example. I mean, I could wear this to like a quote unquote business casual. Keep in mind, I don't care about fashion so much, but like as far as like people not giving you like stares because they invited you to something, but they have a reputation on what they want it to be, right? Times and places. Yeah, I could wear just a button-up shirt like this, just 100% cotton, plain shirt. But I could also totally, entirely comfortably wear this thing to go do a full day's work. I mean, like I'm excavating someplace in an archaeological site. I could wear this very comfortably. Um, just about every single case of anytime you're seeing me wear anything, that's the case with what I'm wearing, right? And so that's what I was saying about don't believe me, but just you can see how my body works. But then on the other end, like if I go hang out at the beach or whatever, like I'd be in this shirt as well. So this button-up shirt that I'm wearing right now, again, if you're not watching this podcast episode in visual, but you're just only listening, then I'm just wearing a plain 100% cotton button-up long sleeve shirt, just, you know, just regular old shirt. And I want to say it like that because that's not like a downplay. And this isn't ours, by the way. This is just somebody else's design. But it's, I mean, this is what I mean. Like, our stuff's going to just be awesome in the sense of what I'm discussing this shirt is for me. Because I'm basing our designs off stuff that's good, that I've personally experienced, that other people have made, but I've modified to be how I know that it needs to for the human body. So that's the thing is, yeah, I mean, it's just simple, right? So simple. Minimize, simplify, allow. In the Image Clothing Company, right? I've said that quite a few times up until this point. So, yeah, just such cool, simple stuff, man. And, yeah, I kind of want to say, there we go. Like, and that's it, right? So simple. So, yeah, because I'm so appreciative for this shirt. I'm going to say this very, 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 I'm going to add three more varies, very, very, very confidently. Our clothing, as far as our long sleeved button up shirts, will almost look exactly like what I'm currently wearing. Okay, so there's a little bit of context because yeah, right. I mean, there's no like no like hiding behind the scenes about like trying to promote our designs before we then like make them come out and oh wow, I never expected it to be so well simple, right? It's like it's gonna be so simple, and that's what I've been saying since the start. So yeah, right. Buttons will stay right in the center. No pockets on the front. Hey, if you like to use your pockets on the front of your shirt, you're not going to get that with In The Image Clothing Company clothing. I'm sorry, in a sense, but I'm not. It's kind of like that phrase, sorry, not sorry, because I don't care. The point is, your body struggles to work when you have just the material of a pocket on the front of your shirt. And then if you place anything in there, that's just amplifying what's already happening with the pocket material's thickness. So, yeah, I mean, I can say with like the most confidence that, I mean, that's pretty much exactly what I'm wearing right now is what our button-ups will look like. But the thing is, I've done somewhere around like 6 or 7 different things to this specific shirt to modify it just to allow it to not restrict me, right? And so we'll just take all that away, and there we go. Simplified version of something that's very similar to what we already see around us. I mean, we're not trying to like change the game or reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to actually go back in time and get things back to bare bones because, hey, we're about the skeletal system. I didn't plan that, but that's sick, dude. That's awesome. I mean it. That is so cool. Holy slogans. We've got like so many like phrases and slogans that we use here. And you know, we're not trying to like steal copyrighted slogans because I don't know with a lot of the stuff I'm saying. If someone else has already said it, then okay, right? I mean, but cool stuff like that, dude, because yeah, I mean, no kind of like surprise about some crazy innovative design. The big thing is our pants. The waistline is gonna be the thing because people got different shaped. I'm gonna word it like this because this is actually what it is. Because the skeletal system's the same, but people carry fat in different ways, and they do. So with that, sometimes the angle of the waistline will change because of the shape of the body mass, and that's just something that I'm not quite sure how to. I don't know how because the big thing is just keeping it even. You know, you've got buttons on like on the front of like pants, you know, like you've got a zipper traditionally and then a button on top of that. The button's not balanced as far as front to back, one side's overlapping, and the zipper has to interlock where one side's over the other, and so that goes side to side. And yeah. So there's a lot of imbalances within that, and that's why I love that slipped lap knot. And yeah, I love drawstrings, and everybody can use a drawstring. And so yeah, that's the one thing is the waistline is going to be the thing that's going to be very important to focus on with our clothing because that's the whole point is the angle of that waistline and making sure that it's just even all the way around. So that's going to be the thing with pants. And then everything else, I'll just do all that I know that I need to, you know, allow basically no restriction. I mean, you're still wearing something, but, right. So there we go. Yeah, no surprises with like, you know, like some kind of super unique stuff. It's actually going to be pretty much on the opposite end. It's going to be just so, I want to use the word generic in a way that's more beneficial than anything else could be. And that's what's so cool about it, you know, and that's the gospel of Jesus Christ. I mean, just, yeah. Our bodies will be I worded it this way at right around the launch. I was making some videos kind of like discussing what clothing's going to look like. And I said, our bodies are going to be the pudding that the proof is in. There's that phrase, the proof is in the pudding, right? Like, yeah. So what I was discussing earlier, it's about the function of our vessel that we've been given. So it's going to work good. It is, dude. And it just is. So there we go, right? I mean, no surprises as far as like what to expect. And that's why I haven't been so even like I haven't even been putting much any attention on the clothing that we will have to be able to purchase because of those reasons. It's like, because it's going to be so simple. I just have to figure out how to sell stuff and how to get stuff sourced, as far as, getting natural materials, like getting cotton in a way that's like ideally pretty good in all ends. And I'm not going to go so much into that right now, but you're right. I mean, because we want to be intentional about things like that too. I mean, we only have this one earth, right? And things like all those kind of things that I don't know. I mean, out of all transparency, I got no idea as of right now how to navigate that kind of stuff. So that's why it comes when it does. And cool, But yeah, because all the button-up shirts, for example, because that's going to be like one of the biggest things. T-shirts, we'll definitely have t-shirts. And then short sleeve, long sleeve button-up shirts and pants, however that looks. Then we'll have shorts as well as long, full-length pants, right? So, yeah. And then I'm thinking probably shoelaces, probably drawstrings. Good stuff. No give, and it's round, good quality. Good quality, right? Stuff that, again, no, it's not like a guarantee, like money back guarantee type of thing. No, not that. But like the intention of, hey, this will last you 10 years. Why couldn't it, Take care of it, Wash it in cold, right? And dry it on delicate, or just hang it. And there you go. I mean, just take care of it. It's just a good piece of fabric. Treat it that way, and it'll last you 10 years. No guarantees, but that's what we're going for. That's what I've been saying since the start. I actually have this little, it's about a 3-minute video. Maybe I'll post it sometime. I might not, but I was sitting downstairs in this house where I still currently live. I lived here at the time of, founding the company. I made this little video. I'm like holding my little cell phone up to my face, sitting in a recliner chair, like, I'm going to start a clothing company. I'm going to do it. It's going to be simple designs. They're going to have the intention to last us like 10 years. Something you can just buy, and it can go with anything. It can work for everything. And ideally, it could just be something we have for 10 years and be just as good. And it was like, yeah, the length that I described and everything, and I have it still. So, I mean, regardless if I still have it as time goes on, or if I post it anywhere or whatever, it's funny because, I mean, we'll talk about, like, I didn't plan any of this. That's really where the first, like, documented, like, wordage out of Evan Strong, my mouth, came from, that was saying that I was going to have a clothing company. And now In the Image Clothing Company is its thing. It's actually here. And it's awesome. Just not something that I, like, did out of me, but just being used as a vessel, really, really listening to revelation and promptings. And the amount that I've learned through this up until today's date is crazy. I mean, I understand the human body in, like, depth. Like, I really do. And I know clothing in depth. And it's just been crazy to just realize how quickly I've learned all this stuff, and to just be able to say that phrase that, yes, I do have a clothing company, right? For the sake of, like, that's so cool. We get to help the whole world, right? So everybody on this earth is going to benefit from this, and they have already, if there has been anybody who's come in contact with it, right? So really cool. Anyway, yeah, no question on what our clothing is going to be, as far as, like, any kind of, like, you're not going to know until any certain time. That is false. You know now, and you've known in ways since any time that I've mentioned how simple it will be. So there you go. But I do love this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 44, on, well, the title is I Have a Clothing Company, because this is good, right? I mean, I talk about how truth doesn't change, and the human body doesn't change. Our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And our clothing, if it slightly looks different, if we do add some things in certain ways that might change some, it will always be the same intention of what it's doing for the body, and also the applications. Like I'm saying, something you really can use everything that you do in your life. Yeah, because that's the clothing that I've been wearing, right? And that's the whole point is if we're going to just allow our bodies to work, we don't want to have certain clothing that we use in certain applications to allow our bodies to do physical labor, like manual work, right? Versus allowing our bodies to stand comfortably at like a more, you know, I want to use the word professional, but I don't like that word, right? But you know what I mean? A more professional, quote unquote, event, you know, but then also like out there just doing more casual things or whatever. Like, we don't want to have a separation in, yeah, so we'll sell you clothing that'll allow you to do this. And then we've got other stuff that'll allow you. No, I'm not even going to finish saying that because we've got one good design, do everything in it, and you can. Because I sleep in button-ups. And better than I have slept in the past in what I would have called like quote unquote pajamas, right? Sleepwear. No, I sleep in this. Yeah, I'm out of transparency. I slept in this last time that I slept. I'm still wearing it. The exact outfit that I'm wearing right now, and so that's what I mean. And it's not like it could happen, but ideally, yes, comfortable for everything, because comfortable as far as functional in every possible physical human function that we'd be just wearing clothing in, except for like very specific cases, obviously. I mean, you're probably not going to be swimming in like a button-up shirt. If your intention is to go swimming and you're preparing to go, you know, but you probably have some kind of what you would call a swimming suit or bathing suit. But okay, this is what I'm talking about. Clothing you wear for everything, and there's no kind of get to an event and wish you had packed something that would have been better suited, right? Ideally, there's no thought to have about that because we're going to do everything that we can to just make the clothing that we sell as In The Image Clothing Company. And I love how it's like this. The word clothing's in there twice. It really is. In The Image Clothing Company clothing, because it's all one word. IICC, In The Image Clothing Company, right? So, yeah, we're going to do everything. We meaning me, and then I'm going to, help the team learn all that they are going to need to have just a high level of intentionality, right? Within build quality as well, though, like, because that's the thing, because our designs can be so great, but then if we like have this great design, but then we've got stuff that's like half well put together, no, we're gonna really try. I mean, give us some leniency, and we're human beings, we make mistakes, but it will always be the intention to have it be good, very good quality, and functional application in everything that you're going to do, except for, again, very, very specific things like swimming, right? So cool. There we go. That's great. This is episode 44, and I love it because this is a good timing for this episode to happen. Well, it's not my timing. That's the whole thing. I'm just praying through it. I didn't expect to even do this tonight at all. Today has been a very unexpected day, but a very good one for me. Like I said, the 22nd of January, 2025. My name is Evan Strong. Let me say it a little bit slower because then you'll know. My name is Evan Strong. There you go. That's who I am. The founder of In The Image Clothing Company. I'm going to say very clearly right now, even though I already said it within this, the actual founding date of In The Image Clothing Company as an official thing. It was September 23rd, 2024. Just because this video here, this audio thing here, this episode of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 44, I Have a Clothing Company, is very much a documentation episode. All the episodes are in the sense of they can live on forever, but this one is more like a lot of information about the company itself that is not necessarily in the other episodes of the podcast, because this podcast is discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. So this is a good one to just kind of have some of these really, good company information things just set into to where there's no question, something we can always come back to. There we go. So thank you. I'm going to cut it just like that and be excited if you want without like having expectations in ways that are like, I'm going to just be excited in the sense of everything that we do. We're just going to aid our bodies in doing the only thing that they do. And I think we can all gain a deeper appreciation for clothing, and even people who do love clothing, if it's for the reasons of fashion, you will deepen your understanding of what clothing really is to us as human beings, because that's something that's done for me, and that's what we do and share within what we talk about. So yes, please treat your clothing well. That's another thing, right? When I say 10 years, no guarantee, but that's the intention. Treat it well, right? Treat it well. So some of the things that I mentioned in here are really, that's all pretty much you need to do. And then just, just be kind to the things that we have, right? I mean, using our resources wisely, as I'm saying, as we source the resources, I'm going to try to do all that I can to do that the best that it can be done. But again, I don't know what I'm doing as of yet. So, right, leniency with us. I mean, don't get all upset. I mean, if we say 100% natural materials, but then we've got like something that's like questionable to somebody, I mean, like, hey, we're trying, right? We're just human beings. We're just, we're learning, bro. And all of us, every single one of us, we're equals, right? So cool. In the Image Clothing Company, thank you. Cut just like that. Hey, like fabric, snip.